I want to be taken out of the fun this morning. Shabbat shalom, everyone. I think it's no surprise to anyone that we live in a cynical age with more devices and tools than ever that purport to make us happier, healthier, and make the world a better place. We find often that we are less happy, more lonely, and seemingly further away from a better world than ever before. And with all the distractions in our lives, it has also become harder than ever to remember what our obligations are at any moment. The endless apps, text messages, WhatsApps, emails, and news alerts leave our minds reeling and losing focus on what's really important and what actually makes us feel fulfilled and happy. The combination of this constant inundation of negative information and distraction leaves us less room for hope and a better future, no less the time to act on it. In our Parsha, Shlakh, the Parsha speaks to the lack of focus and negativity that such a deluge of information and emotions can cause. The Parsha begins with a singular goal: scouting out the land of Israel in advance of its conquest. Prominent men from each tribe are appointed for the task and set off on their mission. And even though Moshe's briefing in advance of their mission seems to give certain honest queries about its features that he hopes their mission will answer, it eventually becomes clear that this task was more about faith than just a simple assessment of land. When the men return, they go straight to the people and voice their fears and anxieties, leading the entire people to panic and lose faith in the mission altogether. This incident, coupled with the worship of the golden calf back in Exodus, becomes one of the great failures of the Israelites in the wilderness, and the final straw for the generation that left Egypt. Moses manages to convince God not to destroy the people altogether yet again, but God's compromise is that this generation will wander 40 years in the wilderness so that they will all, with the exception of the faithful spies Joshua and Caleb, die off before entering the land. Now for us, in this first triennial, this first third of the Parsha that we read this year, that's the end of the story. We're left on a bit of a cliffhanger this week. But at the end of the full Parsha, which we actually did read in our Maftir, we find something that is altogether unrelated to the story, namely the commandment to place tzitzit on the corners of our garments. Or at least it would be unrelated, if not for one solitary connection in a root word, which the passages share. Latur, Taf Vav Resh, the three-letter root that means to scout out. This root occurs over and over in the tale of the spies, and then appears unexpectedly in this last passage of our Parsha, in a verse that gives one reason for wearing tzitzit. It reads, "And you will see it and recall all the commandments of Adonai and observe them, so that you do not scout out after your heart and after your eyes that you lust after." Rashi, the great commentator, makes the connection between the root letters explicit in his comment on the verse by comparing its use in tzitzit to one of the uses of the root tur used in the spy story. The connection between this verb and the sin, interestingly, is bolstered by the fact that, unlike in the Torah's spy story, this verb doesn't appear a single time in our Haftarah, where the mission is an unmitigated success. Instead, a different verb is used, miragel, for spying. Rashi's comment continues that the heart and the eyes are the scouts for the body and act as agents for transgressions. The eye sees, the heart covets, and the body does the transgression. For Rashi, then, the tzitzit are connected to the error of the spies, but also go beyond that to include the sins of desire. Now, this leads us to ask, in what way was the spy's sin a transgression caused by desire? Was it not chiefly fear and mistrust that led them to err? Indeed, those elements seem to be a major part of their grave sin, but this stipulation in tzitzit about not spying or scouting adds another dimension to the usual explanation for their mistake. The spies not only lacked belief that God could help them possess the land, but they perhaps also desired to see and believe the worst possible outcome of the conquest. They did not enter their search with a hopeful outlook and with the support of all the miracles that they had experienced from God thus far. Instead, they desired to find the worst in the land, to strengthen their impulse for negativity and cynicism, and spread that cynical, helpless outlook within the community. Just as strong as other desires of the flesh, the desire to believe the worst in people or in the world is a strong inclination that continues to beckon us as human beings. We live in this culture of cynicism where we expect the worst of people, of government, of our leaders, and society as a whole. In a certain way, this view can be easily justified, especially when there are indeed bad actors in the world who have brought many of us these negative conclusions. But this despair traps us in a cycle of laziness and comfort. It is, after all, much easier to go through life with this outlook. Keeping our hopes low never leaves us disappointed, never forces us to open our hearts to believe in something better, never pushes us to act. And yet, so much is lost to us when we refuse to believe in the best of people, to believe in a better future, and to fight for it. Tzitzit, then, are not only symbols to remember to do the commandments of God and to refrain from inappropriate desire, but they are also something greater than that. They are signs of the hope that binds us to God through their carefully tied knots, when we could easily just give up and shut down. These signs of hope are indeed at the far corners of our garments, of our world. But as we put on the talit each morning, we intentionally gather them together and hold them united as we express our faith in God's unity and redeeming power, affirming that even though hope and redemption may feel distant, they are always there for us to gather up, one thread at a time. In the midst of the dizzying information and worries of our day, the sight of the tzitzit remind us to focus on the good and believe in an even better world, no matter what is happening. To lift our heads beyond the despair and dare to believe, to dare to try. The spies lost sight of the good they saw in their mission and their belief in themselves, in Moses, and in God. They fell into an easy trap and sought to have the community join them in despair. They did not have a lifeline available to take hold of, to remind them of their true mission and break through their fear of failure. Tzitzit are meant to serve as that life preserver for us by showing us that we are bound to God and therefore bound to hope and action over all else. We cannot go through this world scouting out what we see with a negative eye and an expectation of disappointment. If we do so, we lose the opportunity to see and bring a greater future to light, our own promised land. May God grant us the ability to focus on our greater task, to hold tight to our tzitzit, and keep fighting for the world we want to see. Shabbat shalom.